Hey, small groups, welcome to week 6 of Out of the Quiet. Today we hop into this subject talking about time. If you were there this weekend, I approached my conversation, or at least the message this weekend, from this perspective of talking about this is my main point. The fast and efficient kingdom lifestyle is found in the slow and intimate kingdom lifestyle. Let me give you my main point again from this weekend. The fast and efficient kingdom lifestyle is found in the slow and intimate kingdom lifestyle. And really what I talked about was just how so often we want to go, especially with our time. And yet it's so important for us to learn to slow down and to meet with Jesus and to be with Him. It's out of that quiet place that actually He can propel you into your activities and into your time for your day and be much more effective and efficient than you could have been had you just kind of gone after it on your own. You know, and Jesus modeled going to the quiet place and being with His Father. And He showed us a model for how we are to follow in His footsteps, that if we go after the Father first, the Father will give us direction on how to spend our time and spend our day. And I've said this during the weekend, but let me say it again. God can do more on His timetable going slow than I can do on my timetable going fast. God can do more on His timetable when I'm going slow with Him than I can do on my timetable going fast. And so those are just some of the pieces that I was wrestling through and wrestled through during sabbatical. This week, though, as we dive into the book Leading Me, Steve Brown gets really practical. He actually deals with 3 paradigm shifts and 11 tips. That's right, 11 tips. I'm not going to talk through all of those. You guys can enjoy your conversations in your small groups, kind of processing each of those. But I do want to highlight a few of them that were really helpful to me either this time around or I've processed in the past, and they've been some of the most critical things for me to manage my time just better. The first paradigm shift actually was a new one for me that I loved. He said this: focus on making your dent, not saving the world. And to me, that was like, oh, I needed to hear that I can focus on making my dent in the world. I'm not responsible to save the world. Sometimes we think about like all that is going wrong in this world and we're like, I gotta fix this and this and this. And as a Christ follower, I represent His kingdom and His kingdom can fix all things. And yet He's not calling you to fix everything. He's calling His children to bring His kingdom here on earth and to represent His kingdom well. And that just means that really for us, if you just focus on making your dent, perhaps that takes a little bit of weight off of what you have to accomplish in your time, at least in terms of what you have with your life. Some of his tips, he had 11 tips. I'm not going to go through all of them, but let me talk about 3 of them that were really impactful for me either this time around or I've already processed them in the past as I did other books and things like that. One was find your big rocks, and he uses this illustration. It's not a new one, about an individual taking kind of a large container and then starting by putting large rocks in the container and then asking people, is it full? And you might go, yeah, it's full, filled it all the way up. And then you take gravel and pour that in. Is it full? Yeah, it looks totally full. Then you take sand and pour that in, and the sand works around the rocks and the gravels. And then, is it full? By this point, we all know, no, it's probably not full. And pour water in, and water now seeps around the whole thing. The point is, if you try to get the rocks in after the gravel, the sand, and the water, you're not going to be able to get in as many of those big rocks. And so the principle here is start with the big rocks and start with them first. Identify your big rocks in terms of what needs to be done with your life. And really the simple question is this: in your life, what are the things that only you can do and that you have to do? Identify those things and say, okay, I'm the only person who can do these things and I have to do them. Identify those and then schedule them and prioritize them and say, these are the big rocks that have to go into my schedule. What happens is we get distracted with so many things that feel urgent in life that the urgent crowds out the important in life. And so get those big rocks in first. Second thing that, for me, one of his tips was this: find your best rhythm. And here's one of the questions that can go with that is, when do you work best around certain things? And so I asked myself this question actually a couple of years ago. I was starting to process, like, here's what my typical schedule looked like. And what I realized is I was trying to tackle certain things in my day at inopportune times. So for me, my brain actually fires on all cylinders in the morning. So from 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. till noon is a great time for me to be doing my most hard thought process oriented things. So writing and studying and things like that. But what I would sometimes do is I would answer emails in the morning. And what I started figuring out, or having meetings in the morning, what I started figuring out is I'm taking up the time period of my day when my brain is at its best to do things that actually don't require as much brain capacity for me or as much of my mind to accomplish it. Like sitting down, having a meeting with people and being in meetings is more enjoyable to me and doesn't take kind of all my thought processes. And so I've learned that for me, my rhythm is putting certain things at certain points in the day. So I put all of my writing and studying and heavy kind of brain activity in my morning. I put all of my afternoon emails and meetings and being with people all in my afternoons. And that's the rhythm that works for me. You might be opposite of that, but figure out your rhythms and then schedule around it so that you can be most productive. Steve Brown, when I was talking to him a few weeks ago about this whole concept of rhythm, and obviously he wrote the book, he was talking about one of his rhythms that is really important. It's so simplistic, but he's like, I need to let my brain reset. And so he says every day at 2 p.m., he walks around the block in his area. And it's just his way. It takes like 5-10 minutes, but it lets his brain kind of reset. And it's just a necessary rhythm in his day so that he can attack kind of the last 3 hours of the day really well. The final one that I want to highlight was this idea of stop trying to multitask. This one was actually huge for me a couple years ago when I started processing how often I would change activities. I might study for a half hour, then I would write an email for a half hour, then I would, take a phone call for a half hour, and I would be doing all these kind of shifting of kind of brain activities and realizing, man, this is really not good for productivity. And so the whole idea of multitasking, going from one thing to another, really isn't productive with our time. And so if you've heard of time blocking, it's really not a new concept, but when I put it into effect in my schedule, man, did it make a difference, where I just started saying, all right, for this 2-hour period of time, I'm going to accomplish this task. Then for this 2-hour period of time, I'm going to accomplish this task. Then for this 1-hour period of time, and really time blocking your day, as opposed to saying, here's my list of things I need to get done, and let me just go down the list and check things off. A lot of times, if you just kind of go directly down the list, you will jump from activity to activity so quickly that you will not be as effective with your day. And so I would highly encourage you to consider what are the time blocking activities or the time blocking things that you can put into your schedule so that you can be more productive with your time. There's a lot of great other tips there, as well as paradigm shifts that we need to make. I really think that you're going to have a lot of fun this week in your conversations as you talk about how are we going to schedule our lives differently? How are we going to use our time differently so that we can best serve our Lord and use our lives for Him? And so enjoy your conversations, encourage one another, and keep each other accountable to the goals that you're setting this week. We'll see you guys next week.